What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to From Screen to Shelf. My name is Will, and I am joined by the Wallet Buddy himself.
What is up?
How you doing?
Doing fantastic, man. Super stoked to talk everything Nosferatu today. It's been on our radar for a while, and it feels like it came here super fast. So I'm happy that we finally have it, and I'm excited. We haven't said anything. I think I've said like one thing to you about it, but yeah, we're going into this completely
Yeah.
blind on how each other feel.
But I think I can say safely that you and I were both highly anticipating this movie. I think once we found out Robert Eggers was kind of at the helm, it was kind of expected to be at least good, solid,
hmm
right? But there were still a lot of questions as to how he would present certain aspects of the material.
So, I mean, it's been a while since I've seen the original. I've never seen the 70s one or that one that's kind of like about the making of with Willem Dafoe. Because I know this is his second foray into the world, but I absolutely adore the original one. It's probably been 8, 9, 10 years since I've seen it, but I remember absolutely loving it. It's a classic for a reason. So, I mean, I just, like you said, wanted it to at least be good. But like I said, it came here super fast. And then I went and saw it in IMAX. And I don't know about you, but my theater was mostly packed except for the first two rows that are like the closest to the screen.
Hmm.
I think maybe some spotty seats here and there, but otherwise it was a packed theater. I could see all the seats filled. So it was awesome to see that. And I went and saw it on Christmas Eve. So I had a really good time with it. So basically it it harps more on like the eroticism, like the hints, the more um alluded to elements from the original one, and it really
Hmm.
finds its own identity while also staying faithful to what it's trying to readapt for the third or fourth time, right? So well, if you want to go ahead and give like a little, I know sometimes you like to give the plot synopsis. So go ahead for people that may be curious, because we're going to keep it mostly spoiler free, maybe talk a little bit of spoilers at the end. But if you want to give a little bit of a synopsis or what you took away from it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing with this, right? Like that was a big question as to how this was going to present the story of the original, whether it was going to be kind of like a shot for shot remake between a young woman who is haunted by this figure, Count Orlok. And there's kind of a link between them that we don't really know much about, but there's something going on there, whether it's supernatural or something to do with her past that's alluded to in the film. And essentially, she's a newlywed. And her husband, Thomas, played by the absolutely talented Nicholas Holt. We're going to get into the cast of this too, because everybody in this
hmm
movie nails it. There's really no bad
hmm
performance, but we'll get to that. Essentially, he is summoned to deliver a contract, so to speak, to a nefarious count who is looking to purchase some real estate in the town that they reside in, or the city for that matter, that they reside in. And so he journeys, far and wide to a very specific, isolated mountainous region in a certain part of the world to come face to face with the count and to complete this contract. But what it actually is this almost like this kind of pact, so to speak. And the count, it's interesting with the count in this movie. I don't want to get into it too much, but essentially, the count ends up traveling back to Thomas's hometown or home city, and with him he brings darkness, despair, and death. And yeah, this definitely plays up the romantic angle between the count and his supposed obsession um, with with Ellen, who's played by Lily Rose Depp, played fantastically by Lily Rose Depp. So that's essentially as much as I'm willing to kind of give away without really spoiling it. I mean, again, for those of you familiar with the original Nosferatu, this is pretty. It's a pretty well. It's not necessarily unconventional in terms of the story. I mean, the story is pretty straightforward. In fact, I'd say out of all of Eggers' films, this is probably the most, not the word cohesive, that's not the right word, but it's probably the most straightforward plot that we've gotten
Yeah.
with an Eggers movie, and the reason being is only because it's based on an existing source material. So, for lack
Mhm.
of a better word, so that would be my quick interpretation of it.
Yeah. And I mean, I really, really enjoy this story. It's like you said, it's nothing that necessarily hasn't been done before, but it's definitely told in a way that really, really keeps you engaged. Really has you looking forward to every moment. The score is phenomenal. Like you
Mm.
said, everybody absolutely does a phenomenal job with their performances and their lines, everything. Nicholas Holt, fantastic. Been a huge fan of him. Of course, he's in Mad Max Fury Road, and he's done some phenomenal movies. He's done, I think he did Juror Number Two as well, around the same time as this
Yeah,
one coming out.
he's had a
So
great year, dude, for as far as performances, and just
yeah,
being roles that he's been in. I mean, he's really one of my favorite young actors,
yeah.
and, we gotta I mean, dude, I do you wanna what do we wanna talk about first? Because like, we'll kinda make this as quick as we can without getting into, like, spoilers. Maybe we can do, like, a separate spoiler video and delve into that.
Yeah.
Um, but as far as let's talk about the casting because I think everybody in this movie nailed it. Um,
Mhm.
even the supporting characters. I mean, Willem Dafoe, he really kinda shows up later on in the movie, almost about halfway through the runtime.
Yeah.
And I think he's fantastic, and, and there was a bit of, like, laughter here and there with his performance, and it felt a bit melodramatic at times, but I again, that melodramaticism is forced, I think that that's
Yeah.
intended, because, again, we gotta remember with the whole idea of what a gothic tale or gothic fiction is, there is a sense of melodrama present throughout a lot of these types of stories, so, what might seem over the top to some people, I felt was really really well done. And in fact, I think Willem Dafoe's character in particular provided a little bit of comic relief. If there
Mhm.
even is some to be found, there's a little bit there. Because his character is so dramatic and he believes everything that he's preaching and he's become aware of, the powers of evil and the supernatural that's present in this world that the characters inhabit. But everybody kills it, dude. I mean, Lily Rose Depp, like she has come such a long way. I mean, she really hasn't been in a lot of movies that I've seen, to be completely honest. I mean, I think I forget who was telling me, like one of my buddies was like, "Oh, is this the same girl from Yoga Hosers?" I was like, "I've never even seen that movie, dude."
Yeah.
And so I have no idea like what and I'm curious to dive into some of her other filmography, and see what else she's done. But I mean, she's got a bright future. I mean, she is fantastic in this movie.
Mhm.
Nicholas Hoult, we already mentioned. I mean, very convincing performances, but especially with Lily Rose Depp because she obviously plays into this dynamic between her character and Count Orloff. And it's interesting because there's like a seductive quality to their relationship, but at the same time, it's almost like throughout the film, you're kind of questioning whether or not there's a battle between what some people consider love, and then there's cravings and desire and lust and all the other things, which is like the flip side of that. And there's an interesting dynamic at play there. But I got to ask you this, dude. I mean,
Mhm.
the real star of the movie is our boy Bill,
Bill yeah, Bill
Skarsgård,
Skarsgård.
who I
Yeah.
mean, dude, if I told you this before, I think this is the one thing that I said to you, after seeing this was that if you told me or if you did not tell me that he was in this movie, if I did not see his name on the marketing or on the poster or anything like that, I would not have
Mm.
thought that that was him. I would not
Yeah.
have believed that that was him.
It's a total transformation, man.
Yeah. Even
Yeah,
his
he's
his
insane.
his accent, and that was one big question that I think a lot of people had, was how Orlok is gonna sound, because obviously, this is a remake of the 1922 original, but being that that's a silent film, that was the major question on I think a lot of people's minds was how Orlok is gonna sound, in this particular film, just because it's a big question, and I thought they did a fantastic job. I think they nailed it, dude. I mean, it's crazy to me what what he did to kind of inhabit this character. And I was reading that he worked with um, I wanna say either opera singers or voice specialists to bring his voice 2 octaves lower than what it normally is, which is wild.
That's
Like, that's
crazy,
just,
dude.
like, crazy to me.
Yeah.
But he killed it, dude. He killed it, and kudos to I don't wanna give away the look of Count Orlok, because 'cause we'll get into that later, but
Yeah.
it's I just did not expect him to look the way he did, but it wasn't necessarily a distraction. I kind of agree with the creative direction that they went with his character because it does fit.
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
Because as you said, this plays a little more into the eroticism of the original, source material, but there's also that again, it's a battle between that and just the it's weird. He's like this decaying figure, which adds to kind of the grotesqueness and the monstrosity of it, which I think is an
Mhm.
interesting angle to take because it really does kinda get at you like, oh, this is kinda gross," you know? Like, it's
Yeah.
like, it just it makes you slightly uncomfortable, but, I mean, w in addition to that, it's just like you said, the score is absolutely incredible, the atmosphere is, again, second to none, but that's something that Eggers, I think, does so well, and that's apparent with The Witch and The Lighthouse and even The Northman. I felt that this movie was, like, the perfect blend of what I personally like about Robert Eggers as a director and what he brings with his style, and also something that is hopefully a little more palatable to general audiences because the story is much more straightforward. It's much more presentable to a
Yeah.
wider audience as opposed to something like The Lighthouse. And even The Witch, like The Witch for some people was can be a hard movie to sit through. I think this movie compared to The Witch, pacing wise, I
It's a
think it's
little
a lot
faster, yeah.
more marketable. Yeah, it's a lot
Yeah.
more marketable. So I'm hoping that he gets a lot of success with this. Not that he hasn't had success already. I mean, he's been on a roll, but I hope he gets the mainstream recognition that he deserves because he really is such a talented filmmaker, and everybody that worked on this just did a fantastic job. I was really really blown away. I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, man. Bill Skarsgård, I think, might be him and Austin Butler. I mean, Bill's been around a little bit longer than Austin Butler's been on my radar, but both of
Mm,
them are like the biggest. I wouldn't even say Bill is up and coming, but I mean, he's still got a lot of years left to be able to do what he does, you know? So he's rather young in the grand scheme of what his career will probably span, but I think he might genuinely be a generational talent, and I don't throw that around, but his range is absolutely insane. Like, Austin Butler's, like, the only comparison point I can really make because he's made some insane transformations,
yeah.
not in, like, a monstrous sense, because this is his 2nd, 3rd time? I know he's done Pennywise, so now he has Nosferatu, but I swear he's done something else. Wasn't he in,
Um,
Barbarian. I know he's been in quite a bit, but I know he was in Barbarian, amongst other things, but he's had a year this year. Boy Kills World, The Crow, Love It or Hate It, now this, and I'm sure there's other
yeah.
things I'm forgetting, but what a monumental talent, dude. It's absolutely insane, like you said. I honestly kept forgetting he was in this, if weirdly enough. Again, it just kinda snuck up and December 25th was here already, time for the
Right.
movie. But yeah, phenomenal, phenomenal movie. Yeah, I need to watch it again, but I feel really comfortable with a 9.5 because there were some like
Damn.
super small nitpicks that I had. Again, like you said, like um, not to get much into the design. Like I agree with it, but it still kind of takes you a little by surprise. And
Yeah.
I don't know. There's just a point where I kinda made this comparison with what he looked like, and it became a little comical to me to a degree. So I
When you
was like
said that to me, I immediately envisioned that, and now it's like, dude, it's gonna be hard to get out of my head, but it still works for me. But I
Yeah,
will say, if there's anything that would make me minus, like, half a star or something like
yeah,
that, it would be the look because that's the one thing I said to you as well. The couple things I said is that, again, Bill Skarsgård the thing about Bill Skarsgård being
yeah,
unrecognizable, but at the same time, as kind of a counter to that, there's gonna be a segment of people out there that aren't necessarily fans of his incarnation. Not to say that he's not obviously, he's incredibly talented, that he killed
yeah,
it, but in terms of the look of Nosferatu, of the
Yeah.
look of the Count, um, there's gonna be some people that probably won't necessarily vibe with it, and I
Yeah.
was kinda like, debating that too, like, at first, I don't know what I think about this, but then at the same time, I'm like, well, given Egger's research on the material and just even the dialect and the way that people spoke and, in
Yeah.
that time period, it does make sense,
Yeah.
um,
It's just so
but
distracting, but yeah, it totally
yeah,
does, man. Like, if you
yeah,
take all things into consideration, like you said, it really makes sense, but it doesn't help. I don't know. I
yeah,
I just I don't know. I need to rewatch it again, and plus it
mm,
was IMAX, so it doesn't necessarily and it's a very, I'd say, grayscale heavy, it's olden. This movie's gonna be a reference quality disc if it hits 4K with
I hope
HDR.
so. I hope
And I
so. I
think of
think it will
viewing at
be.
home. Yeah, because I didn't go see it in Dolby like I usually do. Again, I don't get those absolute true blacks because you still have, just the screen and everything, but on an OLED, this movie's gonna be one of the craziest looking discs, I can just tell if it's done right. So, I need to
Yeah.
rewatch it again, and it could definitely be a 10. I'm just kinda reserving saying modern horror masterpiece until then. I think structurally because they're walking in, I felt like, "Why is this movie so long?" It's almost twice
Mhm.
the runtime of the original, but it
Yeah.
does go by rather fast, but there are some transitionary scenes where it's kinda like, "Okay, you kinda just broke the pacing just to break it," you know?
Mhm.
And that was another gripe, so I just need to see if, 1, it flies by again, if I have those same gripes, and again, it's just so shadow heavy. I really need to see it on an OLED. I really do, or go back and see it in
Yeah.
Dolby, either one.
I think the lighting and the cinematography, I think, like you said, an OLED with a really good 4K transfer with HDR or Dolby Vision will do this movie wonders. I mean, it already looked
Yeah,
good in the cinema, but as you said,
yeah,
there's a lot of scenes that are very grayed out. And again, this is all intentional. It's meant to capture somewhat of the original vibe of that silent era,
yeah,
cinematography. And let's talk about that for a quick second too. I mean,
it's
kudos
great.
to whoever. I don't know who the DP was on this movie, but fantastic. Even representing a lot of those, again, going back to the original film, a lot of that kind of German expressionist imagery is still present in this movie, and I love what they did with it. I love that they kind of brought that into the modern era, and that's why, yeah, there's people out there that are calling this like a modern horror masterpiece. That's saying a
I totally
lot,
see one. Yeah,
but I can understand why people are in love with it because visually it is just an incredibly tasty morsel of a movie to look at. It is it's
yeah,
it's really mouth-watering some of the work that they did with the framing and the shot setups, and even the way that Eggers works with, like, the archways in the castle and certain aspects of that and the architecture. I mean, it's really well thought out and I think really well shot and put together. So,
yeah,
if you're somebody that's not necessarily into the story and the melodrama that's present throughout, I mean, you can at least appreciate that there's clearly talented eyes that are
yeah,
that are looking at this, and that's what I love about it too. And we got to give credit to the DP though, because I mean, dude, the atmosphere in this movie, second again, it took me back to The Witch and how that movie made me feel just that like impending dread and like the atmosphere kind of it just feeds into that sense that
yeah,
there's just bad things on the horizon. And I love that this movie kind of took me back to that. So it's almost like full circle between, Egger's first feature and where he is now, as a filmmaker. But yeah, again, man, I stand by the thought that I cannot see anybody else taking on this material in the modern era. I mean, he was the guy for this, and I think we got what was expected, and I think it still surpassed expectations. Um, so I was pretty happy with it, overall.
yeah,
I think this movie is gonna be one that people are gonna revisit. It's definitely one of the best movies of the year,
mhm.
for sure. And
Yeah, I
probably
agree.
one of the best horror movies we've gotten in a long time. I wouldn't call it a modern horror masterpiece, but I would definitely call it a modern gothic masterpiece because that is
Yeah,
something that we haven't been treated to in a very long time.
yeah.
Um,
True.
And it takes a certain appreciation to really pull that off well, you know, because again, we don't get a lot of movies like that nowadays, so it's a type of style and or I should say it's a style of filmmaking that isn't necessarily, I guess we can say abundant, right? So,
Yeah.
I appreciate that we got this movie and that it was shot and presented the way it was because hopefully it kind of, gets other people interested in recreating some of the other material from that era and some other, you know, gothic fairy tales because this movie just does it so damn well, and it really
Yeah.
can be taken as an inspiration for that kinda thing, so
Yeah, I agree. Well said. I have nothing else to add. I think that's phenomenal. And I'm pretty sure we'll be talking about this movie a lot more over the next couple of years. I'm pretty sure this is going to spawn just like what you said. More, I mean, we already have Wolfman coming out. You know, some of those ones. I get this one's silent, a little bit different, but we're already starting to
yeah,
see a little bit more of a retread from this period. So I wonder
yeah.
if this does well. You know, it has some competition. I know Sonic's doing well at the box office. Mufasa's out, so it's definitely a heavy holiday season. But I really hope that this movie makes it meets and exceeds how much money it's trying to make on this. Because I
I do
definitely want more
too.
of these.
I do too, 'cause I do think, like I said, it's important that it is successful, and
Mhm.
I think it will be. I have a feeling that it will be successful, you know, for the right reasons, hopefully, but yeah, guys, that was pretty much our this is our thoughts. I mean, Chase, what would you give it out of 10? I think you said a 9.5. You
Yeah,
stand by that, right?
9.5.
As it
Yeah,
stands right now?
yeah, I would
Um
stand on that.
yeah, I mean, I'd be willing to give this movie a 5, anywhere between a
Nice. Hell yeah.
4.5 to a 5. I mean, if I go back and watch it again and really dissect it, I can see me kinda ending up somewhere around a 4.5, but honestly, man, like, I love this, so I'm just gonna go ahead and for now give it a 5. So that's pretty much where I stand. I'm definitely gonna watch it again. I can't wait for a home video release. I really hope that
Same.
they do this movie justice on home video. So we'll await that. But yeah, I have a feeling we're gonna mention it again, maybe in our end of year countdown videos when we do our best of because I can't see this
Hell yeah.
movie not being on there. So that's
Yeah.
pretty much it, folks. Chase, closing thoughts, if any.
None. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Leave us your spoiler free thoughts down in the comments below. If you guys have any, of course, we like checking those comments. If you have anything to add, maybe if there's something that we missed, again, let's just try to keep it spoiler free. But as always, thank you for commenting, liking, and subscribing. And you guys have a happy holidays.
Peace.
Peace.